What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench podcast network and channel. Just want to give a shout out to the rest of the crew. I'm talking about Shy, Kelvin, and Jermaine. And for everyone who's tuning in, I hope that you support Behind the Bench, become a subscriber, and help make this show the best that it can be. Now, I know there's been a lot of conversation over the weekend about the results of the in-season tournament, who won the tournament, whether the in-season tournament was worthy of recognition and viewership, and what kind of impact this will have moving forward in regards to the NBA. And my take on it is, first of all, anytime you have a great deal of NBA fans who feels that this tournament was catered to a particular team or a particular player, and I'm pretty sure whoever's listening know what team I'm talking about and what player I'm talking about. Anytime that type of perception exists, there's a problem. There's a problem where the skepticism is ascending, skepticism and pessimism at the same time. Now, the pundits will tell us that this was a positive experience and it will move the league forward in a great way. But when it comes to something like this, an inaugural tournament that is being presented in the context of professional basketball, there's two ways, or it should be discussed, where you look at everything. You lay all the cards, or they say stack the cards up in the middle of the table. And what I see is, I can see potential detriment. I see potential backlash. Because number one, anytime you have an owner of a franchise such as Mark Cuban, who said, I'm not going to subject my players to play on a court that can possibly lead to injury, because there were reports that players were slipping and sliding on the court because I guess the type of painting or that they use to decorate the court with. Well, players were slipping and sliding. And one player, I believe that was Jaylen Brown, he suffered a slight groin injury or irritation that, he had to be taken out the rest of that game that he was playing in. Mark Cuban said, no, he wasn't going to have it, whether he was going to be fine or not. So that's a problem right there. But what I see is, when you see a team celebrate as if this was an NBA championship 20 some games into the season, well, not only could it potentially devalue the regular season even more, because remember, this tournament was presented to stoke interest by fans to increase viewership at the beginning of the regular season and to motivate players to compete. So that's three aspects. There should be a voice of concern where those problems did not exist in years and decades prior, because the bar was set at the highest expectation of what we required out of the greatest basketball players in the world to compete on a game in, game out basis, where it was a natural occurrence. It was a natural expectation. It was the rule rather than the exception. Now, because of the way the script has been flipped, it's more of an exception than the rule. So anytime you have to provide a financial incentive for players to compete when they're getting paid millions of dollars anyway, most players 8 figures, your top stars, superstars, 9 figures, that's a problem within itself. So now moving forward, let's say next year, the people that support this, the talking heads, the pundits, that they're going to put more emphasis on the in-season tournament at the beginning of the regular season rather than the 82 regular game season in and of itself. And if that happens, I could see a situation where there's discussion to reduce the number of games, because now the emphasis is more on the in-season tournament, where they may take it and move it rather than have it towards the beginning of the season. Like, they may set it up to where the in-season tournament could be a prelude to the playoffs. See, they got this thing so jammed up and discombobulated. I don't think they realize the potential harm that this can do to the league. It looked good because this was the first time something like this happened. But the fact that they had to stage this event anyway to stoke interest, that's the problem within itself. It's just like the All-Star game. When they supplanted the traditional format, East versus West, then they came up with this team this guy, team that guy. Then that novelty wore off. Then they had to provide a financial incentive in the All-Star game for players to compete. But when you had the traditional East versus West format, there was a sense of pride in that. You know, the Eastern All-Stars wanted to prove that they were better than the Western All-Stars. The Western All-Stars wanted to prove they were better than the Eastern All-Stars. There was pride in it, and it continued to elevate that event year by year by year. The standard was always set, and it was always met. There was no complaints. And the greatest aspect of the All-Star game during that time, before they changed the format, was these are the 24 greatest players in the world. The 12 best players in the East going against the 12 best players in the West. Well, when they supplanted that with team this guy, team that guy, it eroded the sense of pride of being an all-star, other than the fact that, a popularity contest, but as far as like representing the NBA, representing the conference, representing your team, representing the fans, that was all eradicated. And that's why it all crashed during last year's All-Star game, where there was zero competitive energy being displayed on the court, a zero sense of pride. They were just out there going through the motions. They were bored because they felt there was no purpose playing in that game, and it showed on the court. And the fans reacted accordingly, and backlash ensued the very next day, where people were even calling for the game to be, for the All-Star game to cease to exist at that point. Well, I see this going along the same path and direction. What I'm trying to say is we shouldn't need an in-season tournament if you truly love basketball. And to me, it's taking credit away from the real NBA champion, and it's taken away from the credence of putting the focus on playing your best throughout the course of the 82 game season. That's what I see coming out of this. So now you've invested so much time and energy into this tournament, it could be a letdown to where the players eventually, as far as mindset and focus, eschew the importance of the remainder of the NBA regular season, which is still, let's just say, approximately 60 games to go. I believe they need to eradicate this. I believe it's going to cause even more problems down the road. And you cannot, if the perception is this is being staged for one team or a particular player who happens to play for a particular team, then to me, that is a self-defeating formula. And fans are becoming more cynical about the NBA product. And that issue did not exist in decades prior. But I believe this is an extension of the malaise of the super team era, where you have to come up with something like this to stoke interest to begin with. And we'll be right back at square one, seeking for answers. So I just want to drop that nugget. Until next time, this is JB for BTB, Behind the Bench.